Hi everyone and Happy New Year! It's our first video for 2020 and it's only appropriate that we talk about the New Year's banner that just dropped 2 days ago. The Asker trio got a sweet set of seasonal alts and Intelligent Systems finally acknowledged Ana and gave her an alt. Ana fans rejoice. Of course, alongside this new banner is a new Tempest Trials event, and with that comes a new free unit, EIR. Oh my god, doesn't her art look amazing? She looks so good, and I love how she's actually got some color to her skin now that she's away from hell. You can totally tell that after the events of Book 3, she's totally ready to turn a new leaf. New year, new me, right? Anyway, let's not waste any time and take a look at what she's got in her kit. EIR receives her first seasonal alt as a dagger flying unit, much like her mythic form, however this time she's featured as a red dagger unit. She'll be the first red dagger unit to eventually be added into the Grail shop, and she's got a pretty sweet base kit that's already caught several people's attention. At 4 stars, level 40, EIR's neutral stats read as HP 39, Attack 31, Speed 36, Defense 21, and Resistance 34. And like with any Grail unit, EIR will be locked to neutral stats. Now right off the bat, we can make some immediate comparisons to her mythic form, which boasts a very similar stat spread. In this new seasonal variant, EIR trades off a tiny bit of attack and speed for a considerable amount of bulk in HP, defense, and resistance. It's not a huge trade-off, but with only 31 base attack and no access to IVs, this version of EIR seems to be just a bit more support-oriented than her mythic form. Just a little. Keep in mind, she's still fairly delicate, and I would strongly advise you to keep her away from any physical damage, but with an even higher base resistance, EIR continues to excel as an incredible counter to magic and staff users alike. Moving on to her new weapon, EIR comes with the Temari Plus, or Temari. I'm sorry, I'm most certainly mispronouncing that, but we have little choice but to press along. Anyway, this new weapon, which is inheritable, basically comes with a sabotage effect. If an enemy's base resistance is lower than EIR's resistance -3, it inflicts attack and speed -5 to any enemies that are standing adjacent to one another. With EIR's solid stats, it's a fairly reliable debuff so long as the enemies group up. What's nice about it too is that, like with most daggers, it comes with a Dagger 7 effect, meaning the EIR can effectively debuff literally every one of a unit's stats each turn. It's an incredibly solid weapon, and should you decide to fodder it off to somebody, you'll want to give it to someone with great base resistance. Off the top of my head, Tethys is a great candidate should anyone be interested in building her up. She was one of the first units I reviewed on this channel, and in retrospect, I think she would really love the extra utility. Anyway, moving forward, EIR also comes with Shove as her native assist skill. It's pretty self-explanatory, and I would probably recommend replacing it. For A skill, EIR trades out her usual Swift Sparrow 2 for Brazen Attack and Resistance 3, which, by the way, can be inherited at 4 stars as opposed to 5. I think many of you returning viewers already know that I'm a huge fan of Brazen skills, so I think it's incredibly interesting that they decided to give this particular skill to EIR. She's already got such high base resistance, and with a Brazen effect, it'll be tough for any magic users to even make a dent. As explained in the description, Brazen skills require the users to fall below 80% HP in order for their combat boost to take effect. And due to their availability in both the Sacred Seal Forge and many 4-star units, Brazen skills are a great budget-friendly option for many units. Lastly, moving on to EIR's C slot, she comes with the coveted Speed Tactic 3. Speed Tactic is a fairly rare skill that up until now had been pretty much locked to a lot of rare 5-star exclusive units. It was especially frustrating for a lot of players as the other 3 tactic skills have been much more accessible. That being said, Speed Tactics is an excellent skill that grants +6 to any ally within 2 spaces if there are less than 3 units of that ally's movement type. The skill description is kind of confusing, but the way I interpret it is that you can't have more than 2 units sharing a movement type in order for Tactic to work. So, for example, let's say you have 3 infantry units on a team with EIR. Speed Tactic is not going to activate because there are more than 2 infantry units on the team. However, if you replace one of those infantry units with a cavalry unit, for example, Tactics will activate. Tactics teams are very popular so long as you have the right team comp, so they can become a very reliable buff in the right teams. Okay, and that completes our base kit review. Though she's a free unit, EIR comes with a pretty solid fodder to work with, and for anyone that's invested in Aether Raids, what's nice about EIR is that she's not locked to the light season. Because this EIR isn't a mythic unit, you're more than welcome to add her onto any other mythic team to help her fill in any gaps. Moving right along, let's start talking about some builds for EIR. We're also going to try something a little different today. Rather than create 3 individual builds for her, I thought it might be more appropriate to shuffle some skills around and see what kind of combinations we can play with. Starting us off, why don't we explore some budget-friendly options? As you can see, we are keeping her native weapon but replacing her assist with reposition, and then slotting in Iceberg for a special. Iceberg is a native special that comes alongside her mythic form, and with her base resistance, there is no reason not to use it here as well. So, assuming we keep the rest of her base kit, the first cheap build that comes to mind would be a double Brazen build. Brazen attack speed might be a good choice for her Sacred Seal, as she could certainly benefit from an increase to her speed. With any Brazen build, I typically like to plug in Desperation or Vantage in the B slot, as they have very similar HP thresholds. Desperation is optimal for player phase, whereas Vantage is better oriented for the enemy phase. On the other hand, we're supposed to be getting Swift Sparrow 2 as a Sacred Seal in this upcoming Tempest Trial, so if you're not a fan of Brazen skills and we're definitively looking for a player phase build, you could always run double Swift Sparrow for the memes. Although, seeing as how air can function as a magic wall, it's worth considering Swift Strike as an alternative to provide for some additional bulk when facing any magical counterattacks. As far as Air's B skill goes, it might be silly to mention, but Air could certainly make good use of Mystic Boost. It would obviously require you to fodder off a Mythic Air, which some people might not be fine with, but it's definitely worth mentioning because Air was designed to tank through and counter a lot of magical threats. Because of her resistance, you'll want her to be taking down mages and staff users, and Mystic Boost provides her with some excellent utility to do just that. Now, if you were opting for more of a support-based kit, we've got a few other options worth considering. Since she's already got Speed Tactic, you could easily pile on another Tactic skill into her Sacred Seal slot for some additional team support. In her B slot, I could also see some people tacking on Aerobatics, which is a solid option that gives her the freedom of warping next to any allies within 2 spaces. Both Speed Tactic and Aerobatics require the allies to be within 2 spaces of each other, so they synergize pretty nicely and are both incredibly accessible skills. On the flip side, if you were planning to use Air on a Flyer Emblem team, you could opt for Flyer Formation instead to achieve the same effect. Just keep in mind that you won't be able to run any tactic skills, as they require you to have less than 2 units of any particular movement type. At that point, though, you might as well run something like Goad Flyers in your C slot to help provide some additional support to your flying team. Now, moving away from the budget options, there's definitely a few premium skills that Air could benefit from as well. We've already mentioned Swift Sparrow 2, so it kind of goes without saying that Swift Sparrow 3 is a very solid option to boost her player face capability. Another premium A skill worth considering, however, might be Mirror Impact. She's already got some solid base resistance, and with a plus 10 increase, this skill would prevent many magic foes from even touching her. On the other hand, I could see some people considering Sturdy Impact instead, as her base defense is what's ultimately her weakness, and a plus 10 increase could seriously help her square off against any opposing dagger units. Though she's already got some incredibly base speed, both impact skills prevent enemy follow-up attacks too, which helps minimize the damage she takes throughout each round of combat. For B slot, I think that all of the skills we already mentioned still apply. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any premium B skills for Air, as a lot of them tend to be locked from flying units, so I would probably fall back on Mystic Boost as her best option. In her C slot, I could see a more expensive build utilizing a skill like Pulse Smoke to help prevent the enemy from triggering their specials. We just had a double seasonal banner last month with Groom Pent on there, so if anyone happened to nab one and weren't sure who to give Pulse Smoke to, Air is definitely a viable candidate. We're also just coming down from the Celica banner that has Thraster on it. She's got Panic Smoke for fodder, so if you happen to be pity broken by a Thraster, Panic Smoke is another solid option to neutralize any out-of-combat buffs on the enemy. It's also worth mentioning that if you wanted to further increase her base resistance, skills like Fortified Defense and Res 3, or even just a simple Res plus 3 seal could help do the job. I say this because Temeri's Sabotage effect scales off Air's base resistance, so the higher it is, the more likely it'll activate. It's for that reason that I believe a Res Refine on her weapon is probably the best way to go. Alright, and that is it for her skills. We've got quite a few options to play around with, and her kit is fairly flexible, so you can sort of mix and match them based on what kind of team you decide to put her in. Before wrapping things up, here are what her stats look like when fully merged. As you can see, her speed can get pretty damn high, so you can expect her to be doubling a lot of her enemies. I'm sure that with a base kit as solid as hers, this upcoming Tempest Trial should feel like a breeze. Okay, and that is it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a minute since our last unit builder video. Between the holidays, work, and playing 3 houses, I've been pretty busy here on my end. Still, I hope you found something in this video useful. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of the new banner. I, for one, am really tempted by Duo Alphonse. I really like his artwork, his base kit, and even if I didn't use him, I could always use more special spiral fodder. So, anyway, thanks again for watching, and I hope you're all enjoying the first few days of 2020. Thanks again. Bye.